On today's episode of Diksha, we are going to cover the topic of sacrifice and puja. In Hinduism, a lot of focus is placed on the performance of sacrifice and performing puja. And a lot of other faiths or religious practices also emphasize practicing sacrifice. Whether it's the the famous sacrifice for the Lenten period, or for the month of Ramadan for the Muslims. Every culture and every religion seems to have some period of sacrifice or some form of sacrifice. But what is the idea, or what is the reason behind sacrifice? Is it that, like a lot of people believe, that we perform sacrifice in order to please God? Or that it is let's say, a divine penance that we are all obligated to fulfill in order to live fulfilling lives? And this seems to be the major belief when it comes to sacrifice, that it is in order to receive blessings, in order to be in good favor with God, or the divine power or higher power. But I don't really see the logic or the real the coherence of thought when it comes to saying that sacrifice is in order to receive blessings or good merit. Because if we look at the simple fact of creation, we are more or less provided with everything we need to live, and which is the air to breathe, fertile soil to plant. We have been given everything that we need fundamentally to survive, as long as we make the effort to survive. The more we work or put effort into our survival, the better our favors for survival are. Now, the reason I put it like this is because in that same line of thought, or that same sentence, we can say the more I work, or the harder I work, or smarter I work and sacrifice, the greater my chances are for survival, and for not only survival but for a life which is comfortable, somewhat comfortable, relatively speaking. So I'm not saying that if we work hard and sacrifice in a low-paying job, or in a field of work that is doesn't really lead to wealth, that we will become wealthy in that field. I'm just saying that relative to where we are and what we practice, we will be successful if we work hard and sacrifice. And I use the word sacrifice especially there because I think that's where the idea of sacrifice comes into play, in that we are blessed when we sacrifice. In that in our line of thinking, if we say that I want to be smarter, so I go to school, we automatically make a sacrifice in an effort to become smarter, which is I could have the option to have a lot of leisure time. I could do simple work, don't need to go for an education or pursue any kind of educational goal, and choose then to live a simple life. So by living a simple life, you have sacrificed the option of going for a formal education. And the other is true in that choosing to choosing to go for a formal education, we choose to sacrifice leisure time and playtime and let's say we sacrifice something that would have given us temporary pleasure for a future benefit. And we could call that future benefit a blessing, in that it is not something that we benefit from right now, but we will benefit from it in the future after sacrifice has been made, and the correct sacrifice. The same can be said if we look at another example for work. We can say that, let's say I start working in a company or a firm, or I set up my own business. I could very well say that I'm working from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon or 5 in the afternoon, and I will relax after work. I will have a lot of leisure time, either watch TV or go out liming or something like that. And then now, we have sacrificed, in that scenario, the option of working extra or working harder in order to achieve some future goal. We have sacrificed that option in order to have leisure time. And the flip side to that is that we have sacrificed leisure time in order to work harder to pursue a goal. But I should correct that part there, that some people's goal might actually be to have as much leisure time in their day, so they work as necessary and they will have enough money to pursue their leisure activities or leisure goals. So I just wanted to correct that word goal. Different people have different goals. So sacrifice is not one-sided. Sacrifice, you choose either or. The one that you choose for, you sacrifice the other. So this is the idea of sacrifice. And it was with this reasoning that I think that the idea of sacrifice or ritual sacrifice is based upon, in that we have already established in previous episodes that there are certain principles which govern our reality, our lives, certain things that we understand to be true, irregardless of the circumstance or the time or place or the culture or the people, certain things that we realize applies to everybody. And this is called, in Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma. Now, in ritualistic sacrifices, religious sacrifices, or even, let's not say religious, but spiritual sacrifices, we choose to sacrifice something that is temporary in favor of something that is perceived as permanent. We choose to sacrifice temporary pleasure for what we might consider an eternal pleasure. And all of these definitions, to clear them up, is that I understand that I will need to sacrifice some pleasure now in order to have a more secure future, simply speaking. So it's not that so much that I am performing a sacrifice in order to receive blessings, divine blessings, but I will be in favorable circumstances later on in life if I make a small sacrifice now. And small sacrifice will be a sacrifice of time, sacrifice of some of my earnings or wealth, sacrifice of individuality for fitting into a system, an established system, which will be of some benefit to us. And it is the practice of sacrificing, the practice of conditioning the mind to say, that I realize I need to sacrifice regularly in order to have a better future. So in a way, it's a conditioning of the mind to understand the process of sacrifice and the correlation of sacrifice to blessing. So sacrifice here, I'm not referring to the physical ritual or the physical fast or the physical donation or whatever it is that will be part of your ritual. But I'm speaking about the cycle of sacrifice and blessing, the cycle of sacrifice, of giving up and receiving. So this, I think, is the basic way of thinking when we perform sacrifices, which is what the past spiritual or religious leaders may have noticed in life, in that the more we look and understand the nature of our world and the nature, our own human nature, we can realize that sacrifices must be made in order to be blessed in the future, in order to receive a well-off life or safer life. Sacrifices must be made. And it is in our best interest to discipline our minds on the idea of sacrificing and to become familiar with the cycle of sacrifice. And sacrifice here, as I'm reiterating, means choosing for in balance, really. Giving up a little now so that we may have more in the future. So this is my basic idea on the nature of sacrifice, or the basic principle behind sacrifice. And I hope this kind of shines some light on why we do it, or why we practice it within religion or within spiritual practice. Because I think it's a more conditioning tool for our minds to benefit ourselves, to be able to choose a healthy form or a healthy discipline when it comes to making sacrifice. So this has been a short presentation on the topic of sacrifice and puja on Diksha. So I'd like to say thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.